good morning. Good morning. Memorial Day is a somber occasion, but today I feel exceptionally good to be here. Not only can I see the faces of our neighbors and our friends, we're all here for a common purpose, and that's because we have a common interest, a common value. And that is because we're here this morning to pay our respects to the veterans who have given their lives in the service of our country. So I'm John Crane, I'm the Vice Mayor of Carefree, and it warms my heart to see so many of you here with us this morning. So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Black Mountain chapter, have a tent. It's the Carefree tent, and they have water and coffee, some snacks, poppy pins to give out, so please stop by. And next to them, you'll find the Veterans Heritage Project tent. So over the years, the town has done a lot of programs for vets, and we have had no better partner than the Veterans Heritage Project. The Veterans Heritage Project is a 501c3 organization. They're dedicated to connecting students with veterans. They preserve America's heritage, and they honor our vets and develop future leaders. So please stop by and say hello to Barbara Hatch. Barbara Hatch, the founder, is there, staff is there, students are there, and you'll learn more about them. And for those who are watching us on YouTube, so this is a YouTube streamed program, please thank Carefree Councilman Vince Delisio for putting that together. So on behalf of the 41 vets interred here at the Cave Creek Cemetery, their families and friends, thank you for spending Memorial Day with us. And thank you for acknowledging and honoring those men and women resting here, soldiers, sailors, and airmen, as well as those men and women who have served our nation. It's easy to forget or take for granted those men and women who have given their lives for our country. So we remember them on Memorial Day, but often we don't remember them the other days of the year. At Carefree, we wanted to find a way to remember those veterans every day. So about 2 years ago, 5 vets in our community stepped forward to find a solution. And these 5 vets are from every branch of the U.S. military service. And they got together and they designed and they managed the building of a Veterans Memorial in the Carefree Desert Gardens. So if you have yet to visit the memorial, and when we finish this morning, I encourage you to stop by the Carefree Gardens and pay your respects. When you get there, you'll find a wreath and some beautiful flowers at the base of the memorial. So the 5 vets who made the memorial a reality are here with us today. So I'd like to call them out and ask them to stand or raise their hand when I call their name. So Pratt Ashworth, United States Air Force. Dick Hartig, United States Coast Guard. Bob Jenkins, United States Marine Corps. Mike Wald, United States Navy. And the team leader, Mike Farrell, United States Army. Well done. So this morning, as we look around this Pioneer Cemetery, you see 41 American flags marking each veteran's gravesite. Later today, or maybe at a quieter time or a cooler time, I encourage you to walk about the cemetery. There's paths all over. You can find your way. And it's just come in and pay your respects. Tammy and Karen Poole of the Tribute Riders installed all the flags on those 41 gravesites. So to begin our program, Cave Creek Boy Scout Troop 603 Color Guard will present the colors. Colonel Thomas Kirk will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. So Thomas Kirk, please stand. And first I'd like to give you some background on Colonel Kirk. Colonel Kirk was a United States Air Force Colonel fighter pilot who served 28 years on active duty before his retirement in 1978. He is a veteran of both the Korean and Vietnam conflicts. During his military career, he served worldwide, commanded a fighter squadron in the Vietnam War, commanded a pilot training wing in Alabama, and served as the deputy commander of the Lowry Technical Training Center, Denver, Colorado, and was vice commander of all special forces in Europe prior to his retirement. Most noteworthy, while leading the largest fighter-bomber raid of the Vietnam War to that date, on 28 October 1967, Colonel Kirk's F-105 was hit by anti-aircraft fire over Hanoi, Vietnam. With his ship engulfed in flames, he was forced to parachute from the plane. Upon landing, he was captured immediately and spent 5.5 years as a prisoner of war in the infamous Hanoi Hilton. He was released after the war's end in March 1973. For his combat leadership and his heroism, he was awarded the Air Force Cross, 4 Silver Stars, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 7 Air Medals, and the Purple Heart. Following his retirement from the Air Force in 1978, Colonel Kirk made his home in Italy, then Madrid, Spain, and then Vail, Colorado. And in January 2009, he moved to Anthem, Arizona for his final retirement home with his wife Ann. So Colonel Kirk, it is an honor to have you with here today. So following the Pledge of Allegiance, Maya King and Jackie Paul, two talented recent Cactus Shadows High School seniors who graduated earlier this month, will perform the national anthem. So please rise for the presentation of colors and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and singing of our national anthem. So present the colors. Please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So please remain standing for the national anthem. Please be seated. Well, that was very nicely done. So please give another round of applause to Maya and Jackie, the Boy Scouts, and the Cub Scouts. lead us in the invocation, please welcome Dave Hulbert. Dave is an elder at the Desert Hills Presbyterian Church. As a U.S. Air Force pilot, he flew KC-135 aircraft in Vietnam. Dave Hulbert.
Tough acts to follow. Particularly, just like to offer a couple of remarks before we pray. This is a time of sacrifice and remembrance. When those of us who served our country in Vietnam returned, we were greeted with contempt and disrespect. After 50 years, that neglect continues as close to 40,000 veterans are homeless throughout our great cities. I see it as a great shame in our nation of wealth and abundance and prosperity, while our current leaders feed, clothe, and shelter tens of thousands of illegal immigrants at taxpayer expense. In my opinion, the words homeless and veteran should never be used together in America. Please bow your heads, join me in prayer. Father, we summon your Holy Spirit to this hallowed ground to make tender our hearts towards the survivors, families, and loved ones in our community. We'll honor and fondly remember those lost and resting here. Their service and sacrifice must never be forgotten or dishonored. We ask your Spirit to warm the cold hearts of any in our leadership who believe that the sacred oath made by our veterans is a one-way commitment to serve and perhaps die for the nation only to be forgotten and housed in our doorways, alleys, and streets, or on our sidewalks in every season. Lord, you have blessed this nation with every material good and have protected our borders and shores for over 2 centuries. We ask you now for wisdom and compassion in our leaders going forward to meet the great societal issues that face us today. May our enemies continue to respect our military's bravery, technology, and power. And may our own people look inwardly to the care and condition of our own citizens with proper respect due to them. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Dave. For those of you who do not know, the Desert Hills Presbyterian Church is located at the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington. And one other fact you may not know is that church is starting up a veteran support group, and that's being led by their assistant pastor, Brett Everett. Is Brett here today? Here we go. So anyone interested in more details, please seek out Brett and he'll fill you in. Our first speaker this morning is Sergeant Richard Gregory. Rick joined the U.S. Army in September 2002 as an airborne infantry mortarman. After serving a year in Korea, Rick served with the 82nd Airborne Division in North Carolina, where he deployed to Afghanistan in 2005. After months of combat on December 22, 2005, the small forward operating base in which Rick was a part came under attack from a large force of 200 combatants. Using a 60mm mortar system in handheld mode, he repelled this attack. For this, Rick was awarded the Silver Star. His unit took 0 casualties, and then in 2008, Rick left the Army. Please welcome Rick Gregory.
Thank you. Appreciate it for the opportunity to speak today. Very honored to speak on these humbled grounds. I've heard the stories. I didn't prepare anything. I feel like it's better just to come from the heart. So I'm going to give a little bit about a day that's special to me, about one of the awesome men I've been lucky to serve with, and then I want to share some of the names of the people that I've lost along the way. So forgive me if I get a little teary. This is very personal and very close to me. I'm honored to speak today because our Memorial Day is not about veterans. It's not about us. It's about them. And I'd like to share a story about Staff Sergeant Travis Nixon. This day was very personal to me because on this particular day, in the mountains of Afghanistan, we were on a particular hill, 2911, and just like any other day outside the wire, with an abundance of caution, always looking out for trouble. But I remember distinctly sitting around talking with my friends, and this day was very important to me because this happened to be my son's second birthday, October 29th, 2005, and pulled out my pictures. We're talking to a couple of my friends about this joyous day and how we're in this country and no one really back home knows that we're even in a war, to be honest. And I remember talking about this, and all of a sudden, above in the hills was just open fire, just direct upon Travis Nixon's position. There was about 20 of them up there, and from the stories that I heard, I was on the lower level with my support mortar system, and the stories that I heard, Travis was one of the first people to notice the enemies approaching them. They had been stalking them all night, enclosed on their position, and Travis Nixon had noticed them, alerted the platoon, and that's when Nixon proceeded to run to position to check on his men. And in a particular time, one of the machine guns had fallen, and he was trying to get it back up, and he got it up, was going to transition it from to another soldier, and he was struck in the shoulder, AK fire. Travis was a soldier. He was one of the best in the platoon, airborne, infantry, ranger, all the things that you'd want to be as an infantryman. He was that, and for him to be hit was an eye-opening experience for all of us. And as he was rushing down that mountain on the back of a Humvee with people doing CPR, waiting for a medevac, I was one of the 4 people to escort him into that helicopter, and one of the 4 people to last see him alive. That hit us all hard because he was held in such high prestige and knew that we were all so vulnerable. And that's those types of people and those types of situations is why I come to love this country, really, because I've seen the best of what America has to offer, and I'm glad and proud to be able to serve with them. So if you would, please join me in a moment of silence while I get to read these names. A lot of them I've lost in country, a lot of them I've lost along the way, some of them to veteran suicide. So if we could take a moment. Travis Nixon, Kyle Dayton, Darren Andrews, Toby Evans, Lee Smith, Arturo Sanchez, David Beasley, Mark Lawrence, Robert Lueza, Nick Fredstey, Robert Kislow, William Sanders, Theodore Clark, James Oshner, Vic Cervantes, John Rogers. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you for sharing the names of those fallen soldiers. Our keynote speaker this morning is Captain Winnie Fritz. Winnie served in the U.S. Army from 1967 to 1972. Captain Fritz entered the Army student nurse program through which she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. She continued to officer basic and Vietnam jungle training. She then completed a program which trained pilots and healthcare professionals to be able to administer care in flight and then to fly the aircraft themselves if need be. Captain Fritz went on to serve in nursing and leadership assignments in the United States, Thailand, and Vietnam, where she received several commendations, including the Bronze Star in 1970 for evac and medcat missions. The award reads, Meritorious Achievement in Ground Operations Against Hostile Forces. In her career, Winnie has served as a manager for the Presidential Executive Suite, where she and her team cared for the President, Chief Justices, Generals, and foreign heads of state. She later moved to Jordan, serving in leadership roles in their military and civilian healthcare service, where King Hussein awarded Winnie the Medal of Honor. In her career, Winnie has served on the boards of several U.S. healthcare organizations, the Vice President of the Healthcare Compliance Association, supporting international hospitals and healthcare systems around the world, and as the CEO of hospitals. Please welcome Captain Winnie Fritz. Thank you, Winnie. Just speak close to the mic. Thanks.
We'll try without the shades here. Good morning. I'm honored to be with you this morning at this important event. On May 15th, we gathered to celebrate Armed Forces Day, honoring those who are on active duty and serving our nation today. On November 11th, we will gather to celebrate those who have served, we veterans. On this last Monday in May, we gather to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to country and to remember their loved ones who daily live their loss. We take time to think of the past and to think of the present, to reconsider that it's not enough to just talk about those who died and about the love of country and about preserving our freedoms. Instead, it's time to consider, what have we learned? And how can we still serve? What have I done or will I do today as my part? As John F. Kennedy reminded us, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not just to utter the words, but to live by them, to model them. For a moment, let's remember the origins of Memorial Day. It began as Decoration Day. Some of us here can remember that. It began 1868, following the Civil War, and was marked by decorating the graves of both sides of soldiers with flowers and with flags. In 1971, Memorial Day became a national holiday. Since that time, on this long weekend in May, some visit the National Mall, some solemnly show respect as we are today at one of the national, state, or local cemeteries, and some take flowers to mark the graves, some of their own family. Many others see the weekend as it's time to launch the summer, to enjoy a family picnic, to launch a boat out here on Lake Pleasant, and or to have backyard barbecues. How many of you here today have served? How many of you? Look at all those who have served. Thank you for your service. As I think of this weekend, I think of memories, I think of lessons learned, and I think of gifts. As was mentioned, I am a former U.S. Army nurse and served in Vietnam, Thailand, D.C., and was in the Middle East for 17 years, including the Desert Storm era. I still have a home in the Middle East, and I'm there every year. For me, the defining time of my life was time spent in Vietnam. I grew up a farm girl in Illinois. We have now owned and operated that farm for 7 generations. I was just home 2 weeks ago helping planting soybeans and corn. We have babies everywhere. Baby goats, baby calves, and 12 baby kittens. I became an Army nurse, as was mentioned, at the University of Missouri in the Army Student Nurse Program. From graduation as a new nurse, I then traveled to Fort Sam Houston, Texas for Vietnam jungle training and officer basic. From there, I then was sent to Fort Rucker, Alabama, where there I learned to fly, first a T-41 and then to transition to a Huey-D. Here came that first lesson. Plan your flight and fly your plan. Or the military says it sometimes a different way. Some of you may have learned the 5 Ps. 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents piss-poor performance. I was clearly taught to plan, but the clear message of my flight instructor was, at some point, stop planning and take off. It's okay to modify your flight plan when you're in the air. You may have a strong tailwind. You may have a strong headwind that alter your course. But for God's sake, take off. Execute. This has been an important lesson to me through life and certainly in leadership roles. Yes, planned, but for God's sake, let's take off. Following my training, I was told to report now to McGuire Air Force Base for my departure flight to Vietnam. My orders said travel in Class A uniform. For those who don't know what Class A is, for me that meant a white and green seersucker skirt, a jacket, pantyhose, and pumps. Really? I had been living in a flight suit and boots, but off I went in my Class A's. I traveled to McGuire for my flight, and there came the second lesson in that Air Force hangar. In that hangar, we were told to line up abreast, 200 of us. I received boarding pass 186. I looked on either side of me after Tin Hut was called. I was clearly the oldest, at nudging 23, and on each side of me, left and right, were 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they were affectionately known to us as those wonderful grunts. They were Army infantry in their combat boots and fatigues. I raised my hand, and the Lieutenant Colonel Infantry said, "Yes, ma'am, you have a question." I said, "Am I in the right line?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, you're in the right line." And I said, he said, "You are the only officer on board today. These are your men. You are to take them to Vietnam." I raised my hand again, and he said, "Yes, ma'am, yet another question?" I said, "Yes, sir." I was told I would have command responsibilities in a hospital unit, but never troop command. Now, I will clean up what he said to me, but he said, "I don't give a god dang what they taught you. These are your men. Take them to Vietnam. Life's an adventure, ma'am. Step up to the plate." Life's an adventure, ma'am. Step up to the plate. I have remembered this lesson of not being afraid to take assignments, not being afraid to try a new role, to go to new locations. We were off to McGuire. As we took off, we were struck by another aircraft, spilling fuel, had to make an emergency landing. We had another breakdown in Anchorage, Alaska. By the time we got to Guam, I was in the cockpit of the 707, and we finally landed in Tan Son Nhut in Vietnam. The pilots, as we were approaching, said, "As soon as we land, quickly get you and your men off of here, run for the blue chairs. In the red chairs, there are soldiers who are going to be getting on the plane. We're a big target. You need to get out of this aircraft as quickly as possible. We need to depart." We did. I landed. My men, my boys, were being loaded into deuce-and-a-half trucks and taken off to their assignments. The receiving colonel asked me to get in the Jeep, and he would take me to my quarters for the evening, a sandbag camping trailer. He said, "There's a little food in there, a little camping shower where you can freshen up. It's got sandbags all around, up on the sides and top. Unless you take a direct hit, you should be okay tonight. I will padlock the door for your security and be back in the morning." As we're riding in that Jeep to those quarters, he said, "Ma'am, I'm infantry. This is my second tour. I've never been in healthcare, but could I offer you 2 priorities this year? 2 priorities. I said, "Yes, sir, I want to learn." He said, "Your first priority, ma'am, is to save your own butt. Don't do anything stupid. Don't fly with a first-time pilot. He'll get you killed showing off. And second, ma'am, save as many other butts as you can. And the rest, ma'am, is crap. Don't pay attention to the politics. Don't pay attention to the trivia. You need to save as many butts as you can. And then let's get you home. I was transported to my unit, and then reality really set in. As some of you may recall, about 2.7 million military served in Vietnam. 58,200 died, including 8 of my colleague nurses. Almost 304,000 were wounded. Our unit in Vietnam was caring for an average of 144 casualties per day. We also went on MedCap missions into the villages after the North Viet Cong would storm the villages to murder, and even worse, to mutilate its residents. I was a new nurse. I was a new manager. In Hueys, we went in, and in Jeeps, we went in to those villages. Hueys were landing at the MASH unit, bringing 6 at a time of our casualties: American, Aussie, South Korean, South Vietnamese civilians, and yes, even North Vietnamese POWs, whom we were to care for, treat, and keep alive for interrogation. As you can imagine, those injuries included AK-47 rounds that blew off a part of a face and a head, third-degree burns from a jet or a helicopter crashing, a rocket or explosive device exploding on a Jeep or an armored personnel carrier and completely or partially amputating legs and arms. There were also those arriving in critical condition who also had malaria in addition to their traumas. And sadly, there were those who had experimented with heroin and were now arriving on respiratory support, and I would send them home brain dead. In the end, we could not save 58,200 of our colleagues, of our daughters, their husbands, of dads, of sons, of moms, of friends. And in the end, 2,583 did not come home. They were MIAs and POWs. At this point, I had learned another lesson. Never forget the caring while you're providing the caregiving. I learned that it's okay to cry when you're caring for and with patients. I learned to hold the dying and help the soldier and the family back home with their final call, including a prayer of ask. I learned to coach that family to ask for and accept help during this time of loss. I myself came back to the U.S. on a stretcher 10 days before my year was up. On the medevac flight, our medevac flight brought us to Andrews Air Force Base in D.C. I was being transported to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in D.C. for care. As we traveled through those D.C. streets, protesters threw garbage bags at our transport bus yelling baby killers. By then, I had developed a plexiglass plate under my skin. I was never going to form a relationship again. Therefore, I would never feel loss and pain again. Fortunately, I was part of a research project studying and treating what became known as PTSD. I learned that it's better to feel and cry than not to feel. My physical and emotional injuries healed, and I was reassigned to manage the presidential suite at Walter Reed, caring for our president, vice president, Congress, 3, 4, and 5-star generals. We didn't allow 1s and 2s on the unit, and foreign heads of state. Through this role, I met and cared for the late King Hussein of Jordan, and then transitioned to work in his armed forces and Jordan's military healthcare system. I was there for 17 years, and eventually we also worked in the civilian healthcare system in 28 hospitals. From Jordan, I came back here and worked in 6 hospitals in the U.S., and I'm back now for the last 10 years working internationally. Along the way, I surely learned a lot more lessons, but our nation has learned too. As a nation, no matter what our feelings about a war, we must support our military and our veterans. We must honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. I'm forever grateful to see more times in Sky Harbor with military in their uniforms being thanked for their service. And obviously, we now experience more celebrations of Memorial Day, such as this event we are sharing today, where organizations are taking time to remember those who lost their lives in service. As a nation, we've also learned to leave no one behind, whether through government or veteran organizations, whether those POWs and MIAs are coming from North Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, or wherever. Today, we continue to bring our brothers and sisters home. And finally, many of us who have served, who brought home our fallen, came home with our lessons that we will never forget. Perhaps these are lifelong gifts that we have received. Perhaps we have received the gift of lifelong learning, the comfort of learning new technical skills, innovating, punting. I was in a conversation, we were just talking about not worrying about some of the technology today. We had learned to punt. The gift of leadership, being a better leader and being a better follower. Delivering on commitments, being accountable to self and others. The gift of adventure, learning perspective, learning to sort out the drama from the danger. I ask myself frequently, is this as bad as Vietnam? Heck no. The gift of being a patriot, crying at the national anthem, and when I raise and lower my flag each day at my home in Surprise. The gift of lifelong colleagues, having a shared experience with each person who serves or has served. We are forever bonded, and I thank you for your service. And finally, the gift of service. As Sir Winston Churchill noted, there's a quote that's on my computer each day. The quote is, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." Well, how can we give then, as people here in the Phoenix metro area? Well, we can participate in today's National Monument of Remembrance. Today at 3 p.m. local time, just stop for a moment with your family and remember those who died in service to our country. Think of those we left behind. Second, on Memorial Day, the 4th of July, December holidays, visit cemeteries, place wreaths, flags, and flowers on the graves of our fallen heroes. We can also visit memorials such as the actual Vietnam Veteran Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, World War II Memorial, our 9/11 Memorial. And above all, teach our kids and grandkids about the armed services. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the Marines, and now Space Force, their missions and the value of the loss. We can fly our flags each day. We can thank a serviceman for his or her service and can perpetually fight for laws and organizations to fairly address in-service and post-service needs of our soldiers and veterans. We can help families of those who died by supporting and working in organizations such as Gold Star Mothers, founded in 1928, an organization whose members have all lost a son or daughter in combat. Or TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, founded in 1992, providing adult, youth, and children's service to survivors. And finally, we can support organizations such as the Veteran Heritage Project, which works every day to connect local students with veterans and teaching them about service. And so we've spent a few moments reflecting on memories, lessons, gifts, and ways we might serve. We acknowledge that our country asks great things of our servicemen and women. Sometimes we do ask for the ultimate sacrifice. And so on this Memorial Day, let's remember the wife who lost her husband, the husband who lost his wife. Let's remember the mother and the father who lost a child. Let's remember the child who lost a parent. Let's remember the men and women who gave their lives on our behalf. Let's remember to pray, to be grateful, to never take our freedoms for granted. Let us each commit to reflect upon ways we can serve. Then, for God's sake, let us act. Thank you. Honored to serve.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you for those lessons and giving us ideas of how we can all serve our country and serve veterans. So now, please welcome back Jackie and Maya as they'll sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy hood with brotherhood from sea to shining sea, from sea to shining sea.
So now, as we go about the rest of our days, surrounded by family and friends, and as you move forward in life, keep in mind and in your hearts the memory of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Remember those who gave dearly to serve our nation and to protect our liberty, for this is the true meaning of Memorial Day. Say a prayer for them and thank God for what they have done for the nation. Retrieve the colors. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next year. Thank you.